I've just been found guilty of burglary for rescuing 18 beagle puppies from MBR Acres.
Today I was found guilty of burglary for rescuing puppies from MBR Acres.
I will accept the verdict. It is the opinion of 12 people, but it doesn't change what I did that night, and it doesn't change how I feel.
Obviously it's not the verdict I wanted, but no verdict, no jury decision, no legal system can change the fact that 18 puppies are now living the long, happy lives they deserve.
In my closing statement to the jurors, I told them that it had been 37 months since I rescued those puppies and that I stood by my actions, and I'm proud of what I did, and their verdict doesn't change that. I'm so proud of what 18 people achieved that night, rescuing 18 lives, and nothing will ever take that away.
And we've got breaking news to bring you from England's Beagle Rescue Trial. And we're so excited to have with us Rose Patterson, co-director of Animal Rising, and also one of the defendants in this case. Rose, live from London, bring us up to date. How many trials? What have the verdicts been? And what can we look forward to?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on, Jane. So far we've had 3 trials out of 5. And so the first trial, the defendants unfortunately were found guilty. Second trial, they were found not guilty. And then the third one, which finished earlier, I think it was this week. I've lost track of time. Yeah, it was this week. They were found guilty. And now I'm facing up to 10 years in prison for the next trial. So yeah, we're going on trial in 2 weeks' time, just over 2 weeks. And then there's a final trial after that one.
So, of course, there was a sense of disappointment when the guilty verdicts came in the most recent trial. And this is what confuses me a little bit, because correct me if I'm wrong, we didn't have the sentencing that I heard on the first case where the defendants were found guilty, but then on the third case, so first case guilty, second case not guilty, yay, third case guilty, but then we got word that they got their sentences. Let's listen to that.
Hi, my name's Ash. I've just been given a suspended custodial sentence for rescuing beagle puppies from animal testing.
We were found guilty yesterday and we just received our sentencing today.
I've just been sentenced to 9 months custodial sentence, suspended for 18 months, and 140 hours of unpaid work.
I myself was given a conditional discharge.
I feel good. I did the right thing. I rescued 18 puppies.
If before I actually went into MBR and helped rescue any puppies, I got told that the cost of saving 18 lives is the sentence that I got, I would still have done it anyway. It seems insurmountable in comparison to the impact we hopefully have on these puppies' lives.
I'm still at peace because 18 puppies are now living free. Rather than feel sad or angry or disappointed that people could find us guilty, what I would really love to see people do now is come together, keep campaigning to end animal testing, shut down MBR Acres.
The best way to support us now is by donating to help us campaign further to shut down MBR Acres and rescue all the puppies inside.
This system tries to break us. This system tries to take away our hope. This system tries to take away our conviction by giving us convictions, and it's not going to work. I feel more passionate about animal protection, about people protection than I ever have before.
And that is from Animal Rising, which is one of the leading animal rights organizations in the United Kingdom, but also in the world. So can you explain it to people who it's confusing to me, and I've been sort of covering this from the beginning. We have all these trials because there's so many defendants, because so many rescuers went in to rescue these 20 beagles, but then 2 were recaptured by authorities. And so you have a whole series of trials that are going on over many months. And so there are different verdicts. Are there different juries? And why is it that it seems like in some cases the defendants get their sentences, but in other cases they don't?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great questions. And I'll try to answer them as best as I can. But yeah, to answer your question about the juries. So yeah, each trial has their own jury. So everybody trial 1 had a jury, then a new jury was selected for trial 2, and then another one for trial 3. Then I'll have a different jury for trial 4. And the judge was actually different for trial 3. It was in a totally different court, I believe, because there wasn't space in the original Cambridge Crown Court. So trial 3 was actually seen by a different judge in a different court. And I think because it was a different judge, for some reason, he decided to go straight ahead with sentencing the day after the verdict was given, which is actually quite unusual. And we were expecting the worst. So it was, massive relief when there weren't any prison sentences. But trial 1 is still waiting for their sentencing on the 19th of February. So to give you just a recap and explain the timeline a little bit, in 2022, there were 2 beagle rescues. The first one was done by 3 people, Ben, Bo, and Dan, and they rescued 5 beagles. Then exactly 6 months later, in December of 2022, 18 of us rescued 18 beagles. And so there's a total of 23 beagles are saved. And basically, I'm not sure why they've done the trials this way around, but people from the second rescue are all getting seen first in 4 different trial groups. And then for trial 5 is actually the first rescue. But easiest thing to remember is that a total of, there's 20 people in total going on trial for rescuing 23 beagles, and there's 5 different trials, and they'll be over by the middle of March.
And you are going to be put on trial soon. And I just have to ask you a human question. And look at, these are some of the beagles who were rescued. Look at them there in their feces and just hungry for any kind of human interaction. I just, from a basic human perspective, are you nervous about this? Because one of the things that I find so amazing and extraordinary is that these rescuers, you just heard them say, I do it all over again. I have no regrets. And these animals, their lives were saved, and it's all worth it. And of course, we applaud that. I mean, that's just so extraordinary that you guys have this incredible courage. What are you going through emotionally as this drags out?
So it's been over 3 years now since the Beagle rescue. And honestly, I've been looking forward to the trials. Like, it's quite, I don't know, it's quite unique. It's not many people get to fight for animals in court. And so I feel, lucky that I get to speak up for animals in court. And when you look at those images of the Beagle puppies sleeping on that blanket, all cuddled up together, like, that is the life that they're supposed to be living. And I'm not for one second thinking about whether this was the right thing to do or not. It clearly was the right thing to do. And I think most people would agree with that. And so, the actual trial, I'm sure I'll be nervous speaking in front of the judge and the jury. It's not an experience I've had, not in front of a jury anyway. And so, I'm sure I'll be nervous on the day and want to represent the animals as best I can. But honestly, I'm looking forward to it. And it's right now, there's a lot of preparation needed, but I'm excited.
This is considered the first open rescue trial in England. What is the significance of that? Because, of course, here in the United States, we've had numerous open rescue trials. And in fact, currently, Zoe Rosenberg, who was convicted for rescuing 4 chickens from a slaughterhouse truck, is under house arrest, serving out her sentence. What is the significance of open rescue and the first open rescue trial in England?
I mean, it's huge. I think we've seen lots of rescues happen. We've done open rescues in the past. However, they've not always gone to trial. But I think this is significant. I think this will go down in history. It's like the first time this has ever been heard of in a court in the UK, and we managed to get the first ever acquittal, first ever not guilty verdict for an open rescue as well. So honestly, I think it's historic, and I just feel lucky to be part of it.
Now, there's a lot of talk about the vegan movement, which is connected, obviously, to the animal rights movement being under fire. For example, the meat industry churning out, thousands of social media influencers that are saying bad things about veganism and claiming it's unhealthy, when we know statistically and from studies like the China study that it's the healthiest diet. How does that overlap with the overall animal rights movement? And is the animal rights movement in the United Kingdom growing? I just was on a call just yesterday or the day before where somebody who studies this says, she repeated the famous saying, first they ignore you, then they make fun of you, and then they get angry and fight you. And she said, we're in the fight you phase. What is your thought on that and where the larger animal rights movement is going at this moment, globally and in the United Kingdom?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we look at specifically at the Beagle trial, and this, we've done a whole campaign around beagles and freeing beagles from MBR Acres, which is the beagle breeding facility. We've had overwhelming support. I don't think I've seen one negative comment online, honestly, specifically about rescuing beagle puppies. And so, like, clearly the British public care about dogs and animals in general. We actually call ourselves, often we refer to ourselves as a nation of animal lovers, and people are quite proud of that. However, yeah, our legal system doesn't necessarily reflect that. But I think most people care about animals. More people are waking up to what's happening, especially on like factory farms, but in animal farming in general. And I don't know, yeah, it's hard to say. It depends. I feel like I'm often in this a bit of a bubble, and things can feel great when you're inside this bubble. And of course, when you're found guilty for rescuing beagles in court, you don't know the reasons why a jury has necessarily voted in that way as well. So yeah, it's definitely disappointing when we get verdicts like a guilty verdict, but it could also be because people don't fully understand the like the legal arguments or how to actually assess if someone is guilty or not for, in this case, burglary. But yeah, going back to like animal rights and veganism in general, I think it's definitely the word vegan has not been, I don't know, yeah, it's not super accepted or welcomed in the UK. And I think, yeah, we have, I don't know, yeah, this propaganda against veganism has been super unhelpful. And I know a lot of people are working on narrative and how to be able to effectively communicate that we just care about animals and we just don't want animals to suffer. And that's all it means to be vegan. But yeah, I mean, generally, I feel optimistic. I don't think I'd be doing what I am doing if I wasn't optimistic. And I do think most people do care about animals, dogs, cats, chickens, pigs. They do care. It's just that most people either don't have the means or it's just not convenient enough to go vegan. And so, yeah, I think we're heading in the right direction, but clearly not fast enough.
Well, what's a little surprising is the guilty verdict. So again, we're talking to Rose Patterson, co-director of Animal Rising and one of the defendants in England's first open rescue trial, rescuing beagles. We've had the open rescue trials here in the United States involving farmed animals for the most part, not exclusively. But we always talk about people love dogs. If people love cows and pigs and chickens as much as they love dogs, we wouldn't be in problems. And nevertheless, there were 2 convictions in this series of trials for beagle rescue. So I'll play some beagle rescue versus some chicken rescue, as you can talk a little bit about why that didn't leverage more, given that people love their dogs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that with beagles, I mean, I don't think in court we're not necessarily, or at least the jury may not realize that they can acquit us based on their conscience. So the prosecution are just arguing that we're a bunch of people that stole some dogs, and yeah, that counts as burglary. And a jury might just be like, yeah, I mean, you just have no idea what they're thinking, but the jury might just be like, yeah, these people haven't denied what they're doing. And they did take the dogs, whether you want to call it taking or stealing or rescuing. But to a jury, they may just be thinking, yeah, that's what happened and that should be classed as burglary. However, the law is more complicated than that, and it's not black and white. And for the reasons that we did this, like, people could acquit us or on their conscience, but there's also the legal argument that in the UK, at least, to commit burglary, an element of it has to be dishonest. And yeah, one of our key legal arguments is that we were not acting dishonestly. Everything we did was honest. We're completely open. That's why we published this online and told the press and speaking to you right now. And Yeah, I think the legal system is extremely corrupt, and there are so many issues. I can't even go into all of them right now, but yeah, it's when the legal system is not on the defendant's side at all. It's leaning towards the prosecution, and a jury is not given the information that they need to give the defendants a fair chance and to give them a fair trial, honestly. And so it's really hard. It's putting the work in as a defendant to try and help a jury understand that they can acquit based on their conscience and based on the fact that we were honest in our actions. So it's difficult. So it's totally possible to be found, like we've seen, guilty in one trial and not guilty in another for exactly the same action.
And I said that I would play some video from the U.S. side open rescue movement. Here is Zoe Rosenberg back in 2023 rescuing 4 chickens from a slaughterhouse truck. And in both cases, we invite the companies on. We would love to dialogue with the companies. And so she was convicted. And as I mentioned, right now, she is serving house arrest for rescuing these 4 chickens. And, one of the arguments in this case is that the defense wasn't really able to show her motive, why she did this. Sure, they looked at this video, which, by the way, was taken by Direct Action Everywhere, the organization that she is a member of. So there's that. These so-called defendants don't try to hide their actions. They actually, part of the open rescue movement is that they videotape their actions and either put it out live or put it out shortly thereafter. But the defense in her case said, we're not able to show the jurors the conditions these chickens were raised in the factory farms. That's what really informed her decision to go in there, and not the last, that doesn't look good either. They're in crates. Even though the company said no crates, they have a no crate policy. And by the way, we invite them on anytime, and they deny all the allegations. But that doesn't look so good. But they weren't able to show the jurors, hey, here's how these animals are raised. And this is why we went in there. So the jurors are operating on very limited information. Is that one of the big problems when you're trying to defend yourself, is that motive is always something that the defense is allowed to, and the prosecution also talks about motive. That's a key thing. Why did that person, in the case of a murder case, why did that person shoot the other person? Was it self-defense? Were they acting in the emotions of the moment, or was it premeditated? Motive is a big part of any criminal trial. But in the animal rights cases, you say you're not allowed to talk about the real motive.
Mm-hmm. I mean, 100%. That's been one of the big challenges so far in all the trials. So far, trial 1 was the trial where, they were barred from saying the most out of all of the trials. The judge was particularly harsh, and not being able to explain why you did what you did or what would have happened to the dogs if we hadn't saved them. It's like a massive disadvantage. You can't just say, someone stole something, but not explain why. And it's one of the reasons why, I believe that the justice system, it's definitely not just, it's up to an individual judge to decide these rules as well for each trial. And it can be different for different trials. It makes absolutely no sense. So it makes a huge difference to the trial, I think.
So one of the issues here is what happens to the dogs. This is a breeding facility, but obviously the big question is what happens to the dogs when they leave the breeding facility. The defense had tried to argue that some of these dogs are bled out, and some of the horrors. How much of that were you able to get to the jury in some of these cases? And how does that play into the trial?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think particularly for trial 1, they weren't able to talk too much about animal testing, although I think they tried. And especially a lot of our defendants are actually self-representing. That makes it easier to be able to try and get these things in if you're not a legal expert, but and maybe you don't understand all the rules that the judge has put in place. But I think people have been able to talk about the bleeding out, and the conditions of MBR have been shown to juries as well, the concrete cages and feces everywhere. However, we're not necessarily, I mean, I think that's important to see what's happening in MBR, but to be able to explain what would happen to the dogs after that is really, really important. And so, yeah, it's kind of been mixed. I think like the defendants have so far been able to say a bit about what would happen to the dogs, more so in trials 2 and 3, but yeah, not in great detail. However, I think, yeah, there's also questions about how effective that is as well, but how much detail to go into, I guess, on the how I guess gory the details are, because that can also be off-putting to juries. But yeah, it's been difficult, basically.
You know what I think would have been most effective? Bringing a dog, an actual dog, into the courtroom. I don't know if that could be done. Legally, you might be able to. I mean, unfortunately, because dogs are considered evidence, and this is my Beagle Mix Wednesday. And, you know, I bring her into the show because it shows you how docile beagles are. I mean, my other Jack Russell, she'd be here for 10 seconds and then off. But I could probably be here for an hour with Wednesday, my Beagle Mix, because they are known for being particularly docile. And that's one of the reasons, in a sick way, the human mentality, why we use them as a species for experimentation, because they're docile and easy to control. So, you know, in these cases, I think we have to think outside the box. Has it ever, considering, okay, so the prosecution uses the fact that they're property under the law to their benefit. What about using that to your benefit and said, well, since they're property, I would like to bring a beagle in, not the beagles you rescued because they try to confiscate them, but a beagle to show how docile they are and to explain some of our arguments. Have you thought about that at all?
Yeah, we haven't tried bringing a beagle in. Maybe it's worth trying. But yeah, we haven't tried. I don't know if they would say that this is relevant if that specific beagle wasn't one of the beagles that was rescued. Maybe it's even worth trying to bring in one of the ones that was rescued. However, like for their safety, there's questions around that. But yeah, I agree with you that the jury seeing a beagle in front of them would impact the trial. And yeah, Wednesday is so cute.
I have to agree with you there. Yes. The verdict on Wednesday is that she is very cute. Nilo Forrest-Garian says, Rose, my hat off to you and Team Animal Rising for challenging open rescue, for your challenging open rescue actions. Now, I know that this is not the only, you're very busy, your organization. There's another case involving royalty. Can you bring us up to date on that?
Yeah, I was actually supposed to be on trial this week for rescuing lambs from King Charles's estate back in 2023. The trial was postponed for the second time to September. This is another problem with our justice system in the UK. It's not very organized. And so, yeah, went to appear in court on Monday and was told there wasn't a judge available. But yeah, so this is hopefully going to happen in September. So yeah, that was basically 3 of us, myself, Rosa and Sarah, rescued 3 lambs from King Charles's Sandringham estate. So he has a lot of land filled with sheep farming, and we were preventing the slaughter of those sheep and took them to safety. And so, yeah, now we're arguing in court that, this was, we didn't do anything illegal because we know we did the right thing, of course. But it's definitely more of a challenge to argue that because they're lambs and not dogs, but also because the conditions in a field don't look as bad as maybe MBR acres. And also maybe a lot of people aren't aware of what happens to animals at slaughter, or because they probably support the industry, that it's not going to be taken as seriously. But I'm looking forward to that challenge. And King Charles claims to be an environmentalist and should be thinking more about what he's doing with his land.
So I agree with you there. I mean, how many environmentalists are eating animals when eating meat is one of the largest, and some have made an argument, the largest, it's a very big subject, so it depends on how you interpret it, causes of climate change. There's also, when it comes to the Beagle Rescue Trial, something that predates the trial that you're scheduled to go up for in these series of trials, and that's Camp Beagle. So Camp Beagle has been going on for the longest time outside MBR acres. It's the longest running animal rights camp, I think, in U.S. history. What's happening with that? Because I know that there's a lot of, push to try to get them out.
Yeah, Camp Beagle's amazing. They started camping outside MBR Acres in 2021. Literally, they've literally been camping on that road for like over 4 years now, almost 5 years. And yeah, there are now, actually, I think it was just yesterday, the day before yesterday, a bill was passed which basically said that animal testing facilities, including breeding facilities, are now classed as national infrastructure, and so it gives them basically they're like a protected site, and this could affect protest rights, and basically gives the police more rights than if it was just like a normal like public property or something like that, or public road. So it gives these animal testing facilities more protection, which is really, really disappointing, because there was a lot of pushback in the media, and a lot of members of parliament did vote against it. But yeah, in the end, it was passed. So yeah, it's pretty scary. Obviously, that's not going to stop us from continuing the fight. But
Well,
yeah.
Rose, here's what I don't understand. Obviously, there's very bizarre things happening globally. We're in a very turbulent time, a lot of volatility. But there is a move, for example, in the United States to get rid of animal testing, and it's getting more and more momentum. And I think part of it is just the rapid advance of technology, quantum physics and artificial intelligence that are accomplishing so much. And yet this medieval practice of torturing dogs, all animals. I saw this. I was driving and I was listening to a show on a major network where it was like a comedy show. And this to me is the most disgusting thing that I heard. They were making fun of a study that showed that if mice are fed the smells of their own farts, they have some kind of beneficial effect, and they're all laughing, ha, 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 ha. Isn't this funny? And I thought, this is a perfect example of millions of usually tax dollars going into these idiotic experiments that go on and on, day after day, month after month, year after year, sometimes decade after decade. But there does seem to be a growing awareness, at least in the United States, that this is pathetic, embarrassing, out of date, literally medieval. Is that also happening in the United Kingdom?
Yeah, so our government, not long ago, maybe November 2025, announced a phase out of animal testing, released like a new manifesto, basically confirming this, and even said in that manifesto that alternatives to animal testing are either always better than or at least as good as testing on animals. And so, yeah, just proving that this is not necessary at all. In fact, a lot of the time, yeah, I think we all know it's not always, or a lot of the time, not accurate. And so, yeah, the government is, it's contradictory, because, yeah, the government 1 minute is saying we need to phase out animal testing, then the next is protecting animal testing sites. And yeah, I think there is a lot of, power at play and money. And yeah, I think it's going to take a while to actually see that phase out. And there were also loopholes in the manifesto, but yeah, we'll see what happens with that. I think we're like going in the right direction, but again, it's so slow, and a lot of people are trying to push back.
I want to point out that Free the MBR Beagles is a petition that is ongoing. If you want to, you can just put your phone on that QR code and you can sign the petition. And so far, it's been very successful, but of course, they're always looking for more people to sign. And I checked it last night, and it was at something like 34,000 signatures. So I'm leaving it up there for a couple of seconds so that people who want to pull out their phones, their cell phones, and you could just take a screen grab of that and do it later if you don't want to do it right this second. But you can actually sign that petition. You don't have to be from the United Kingdom. And so I'm going to leave it up there for a couple of seconds in case people want to sign the petition. And of course, we always say, there it is. Okay, so you've had your chance, or you can, after this live is over, you can go back and get it later. But we always say that we invite the company on anytime, And they, of course, deny all the allegations that you've made against them and say they operate within government regulations and the law. So what is, in your opinion or your estimation, as we wrap up here, the future of this breeding facility? Is it going to continue on, or is it going to shut down, as quite a few breeding facilities here, or at least some in the United States, are shutting down?
I honestly think there's a strong chance it will shut down in the near future. We're seeing a lot of campaigning around MBR acres, trying to get it shut down, pressure campaigning on their like secondary and tertiary suppliers, things like this. And I believe it's been pretty effective. And I think this trial is also highlighting the public support for the closure of MBR acres and the freedom of all of the beagles. So I'm feeling positive that we're going to see a closure to MBR very soon. It can't happen soon enough, of course.
Needle Far signed, 34,000 plus signatures. Final question: as a defendant, when do you go on trial, and what are you feeling right this second?
So my trial starts on the 23rd of February, should last about a week and a half. And right this second, I'm feeling excited, but I'm sure I'll feel nervous once it comes around. But I'm feeling good about it.
All right. I want to thank you so much for joining us. Rose Patterson, an amazing leader in the animal rights world. You have been doing so much. Will you come back, hopefully, no matter what the outcome after your case, and tell us what's going on?
Yeah, definitely. Before, during, after, it's totally fine.
The next trial. Okay. I just want to, because it's so complicated, I just want to make sure I understand this. We've had 3 trials: conviction, acquittal, conviction. Is another trial ongoing now, or is it not going to?
No, so the one that was just convicted earlier this week, it finished a bit early. They were all like scheduled to be about 2 weeks, but anyway, so it's finished. Now we've got a 2-week break, so we have 2 weeks without any trials, which is nice for the team to have a rest. And then my trial is the next one, and it starts on the 23rd of Feb.
Okay, well, we're going to be standing by for that, and I do hope that you come back afterwards. And very excited to find out. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us live from London, and we'll see you next time.
This is the first open rescue trial ever in the UK, so it's a historic event, and just a huge moment for the animal movement to draw more attention to animal testing and hopefully see the closure of MBR acres very soon as the first step in ending all animal testing.
And we're calling for the facility to be closed, long story short, and put animal testing, originally the concept animal testing on trial, because I did it once in June 2022 with 3 of us who did it accountably, and then the Crown prosecution dropped the charges, they said, due to lack of evidence. So then we went back again in December 2022. And so what we're hoping is that we'll be found, obviously it's not guaranteed, but we're hoping we'll be found not guilty by a jury. And that will significantly, hopefully, undermine the animal testing industry in the UK.
And so there's 20 of us going on trial over a period of about 3 or 4 months. So Ben's in the first trial that starts on the 1st of December. And we've been split into groups of 4 or 5, and mine's the 4th trial. So my trial is in February.
I'm not too worried about it at the moment, to be honest. I'm quite hopeful. It seems so common sense.
In 2022, there was the opportunity to go into MBR acres and do this. And of course, to save those individuals that we did, those 23 puppies. I think that in and of itself is a really, really good thing. But also we did this openly and accountably, and we wanted it to go to trial to raise awareness about what's happening to beagles in animal testing labs still in the UK. It's just completely barbaric that this is still happening when there are alternatives. The government's actually trying to phase out animal testing now. But I just cannot stand the thought of animals being tested on in this day and age. And so, I felt I'm totally happy to put my freedom at risk for saving some lives.
Thank you for joining us. We will see you next time. We're going to stay on top of this case.
So it's a vegan Netflix. Okay, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. I love Unchained TV.
Unchained TV. Your life will change. It's just that easy.
Unchained TV has all sorts of content for everybody.
Unchained TV changed my life.
Unchained TV is crushing it.
I love Unchained TV. Unchained TV is my go-to.
Unchained TV. Who knew?
Unchained, baby. Yay.